for people to change rooms, just because I think we've got some people shifting rooms. I think it was a bit tight, so I'm going to sort of launch in. In the meantime, while everybody's sort of shifting rooms, I'll just give a brief introduction, and I guess I've got a question to start off with. How many of you would be happy if you didn't hear the word strategy for the rest of the day? Have you heard that enough today? Yeah, I figured so. I'm pretty sick of it myself, despite the topic of my conversation today. So I'm Jason Greenwood, and it's really, really great to be here. So I want to thank Pratik and the crowd here from Digital Transformation 2018. How about we give them a hand for putting on the conference? We don't oftentimes get really great digital conferences here in New Zealand. We've got a pretty light conference calendar compared to places like Australia, so I'm really thankful that these guys put this on every year. I was here last year, and I was part of a panel last year, and it's really interesting to see the kind of shift that seems to be happening with this conference in particular, where it's, even though the name is digital transformation, it seems to be very much an IT-led conference. So hands up who feels like they're a digital person. They feel like they work in digital, that's their role. They're digital. Okay, now put your hands up if you feel like you're an IT person, that you work in the IT team or in the IT department. Okay, so it's about maybe, I'd say 60-40 roughly, right? Great, that gives me some good context. I consider myself a hardcore digital guy. I tried to work in the IT space very, very briefly, and it didn't go down too well, so I went back to digital. I'm very, very happy there. I've been in digital for about 15 years. And if you guys want to start, I don't know how many of you guys have the app loaded up, Slido, on your phone, but I'd love to get into Q&A as soon as possible, because I really feel that to add context, I'd like to work with some of your questions as soon as possible, so I'm not going to pontificate from the stage for too long. I'm going to give you some background on me, going to give you some background on the projects I've been working on, and hopefully get into a little bit of the nitty-gritty, get our hands dirty a little bit on how we can leverage data, perhaps in ways that you guys have never thought of before, and that's really my goal today, is to start thinking of data in creative ways. I'm not a data scientist, I'm not a data analyst, right? I'm an e-commerce manager, and I've worked in digital for 15 years, but man, has data become the hot topic of conversation as we move forward with the digital space. And so I have to understand it at a really, really granular level, and I have to be able to bring data together across the whole organization where I work today and the organizations I've worked with and will work with in the future. So let me just grab the little clicker here. So my background is, like I said, I've been working 15 years in digital. I've been working for HealthPost for just over 2 years. I am the e-commerce manager, and I'm the first e-commerce manager that HealthPost ever had. HealthPost has been in business for just on 30 years, founded in 1988. Small family business from the South Island of New Zealand down in Collingwood. And the son of the founders is our CEO. And he was our e-commerce manager, he was our marketing manager, he was our everything manager up until just a couple of years ago, as I'm sure a lot of small businesses are. We suddenly got to a scale, we grew very rapidly over the last 5 to 10 years, and we got to a point where the CEO said, heck, I can't actually do all of this for a 100-person company anymore, 100-plus person company anymore, I need a little bit of help. So I was hired into the business as the first e-commerce manager in the business, but I'm not here speaking on behalf of HealthPost. I'm trying to just simply bring some of my experiences from my digital career to bear for you guys, and hopefully you can get some value out of it. So get those questions ready as they come along. So the first thing I want to talk about in terms of data and how it can become strategic in your business is that not all data is created equal. So I'm very much coming at this from the perspective of an e-commerce business. So selling products or services online. So I'm not an airline. I really come from the hardcore e-commerce. We have products to sell, but in this day and age in 2018, we now have to tell stories, we have to educate, we have to empower, we have to do a whole lot of other things other than simply putting a few products online. And it's not the field of dreams anymore. We used to just be able to build it and they would come. It's not like that anymore. So the whole funnel has changed, and data plays a big, big part in both getting people to your website in the first place, converting them into customers, and then retaining them and turning them to loyal customers for a lifetime. So I just want to talk about a few of the different data sources and data types that we have and how they're not created equal and why that's important to when you start thinking about data, especially in a big data environment. First of all, we have clickstream data sources. So that's primarily Google Analytics or your clickstream analytics package. So what do people do when they come to your owned properties, whether that be through your mobile app, whether that be through your website, any property, any digital property presence that you own as opposed to have earned media on, like social media, that you don't own those platforms. You have a space in those platforms, but you don't own those platforms. So clickstream analytics is all of the data that comes from a customer interacting with platforms that you own and you build in-house. We also have data coming from CRM and ERP. So customer relationship management software, we as HealthPost, we went through in 2017, our biggest digital transformation project in the history of our company we did last year in 2017. We replatformed an entire ERP, so our entire enterprise resource planning, our entire order management system, and our entire warehouse management system. We also implemented a product information management tool and some other omni-channel tools as well. It's the biggest change that we've ever undergone technically as a business. Very, very exciting. 2018 going to be nearly equally as big. We're going to re-platform all of our front-facing platforms. So all of our customer-facing commerce platforms and technologies, all that supporting technology is going to be re-platformed this year. So 2 years of massive change for our business. And these are some of the data sources that I'm working with and will be working with this year. Email data. Email data is absolutely mission critical. If you guys were in here earlier and you were listening to the Air New Zealand presentation, they had a really big focus on email. Now that makes a heck of a lot of sense from a data perspective because it's one of the really, really established, controllable pieces of data that we have. And so everybody's used to dealing with email, and as a result of that, the return path in terms of information that we can not only push out, but the customer can give back to us, we can deal with that large volume of data coming in. The other data that we have is channel data, so basically both sales and behavioral data. So when I'm talking sales data, I'm talking about channels that you sell products through. So that might be your own website, it might be a marketplace like an eBay or an Amazon or a TradeMe or a Tmall, something like that. So we're talking all the places in where you transact and where you don't transact. So what is the data that comes from the channels that you present information through but you don't sell through? So this might be product comparison websites, shopping websites, and the like. So how can you get that data plumbed back into your business so that you can link that together with individual customers so that you can personalize the experience that customer has with your business? So start thinking about where does this data actually come from and how do we plumb it back in? Then we have personal preference data. And this is a really this is a kicker, really. This is one of those things that we really love to have. We love to have as much customer preference data as we can, but we sometimes have to incentivize getting it, right? So customers are real reticent, unless they can see a real direct benefit to giving you their data, they oftentimes won't do it. So there's a couple of different ways in which we want to be able to incentivize that. One is we want to empower the customer, or at least communicate to them why we're wanting this data, to empower them to be contacted through the channels that are available to us as a business. So I might be able to contact a customer via email and Facebook Messenger and Instagram DM and live chat and browser push notifications and everything else. I might be able to contact my customer theoretically through 10 different channels, but does my customer actually want that? And so when you start thinking of channels of communication, you want to make sure that you're gathering that data and you're explaining to your customer very clearly, hey, the reason I'm asking you for this information about how you want to be contacted is so I don't contact you on a channel you don't want to hear from me on, right? Second piece is, what about the other preferences that you want to collect? So what are their interests? What phase of their customer life cycle are they in with you? Do they have kids, et cetera, et cetera? So people are oftentimes don't want to give up that kind of information and that data to you, but you need it to be able to create really personalized experiences. So how do I get it? One of the ways is to create a special mechanism whereby a customer has to give you preferences in order to get a benefit. So let's say they want to sign up for a free tester box, for example, in the case of a business like ours that actually sells physical goods. What if you want to put together a test program to where all the new products that you get in, somebody that opts into that test program, they get sent once a month, once a quarter, whatever it might be, effectively a free gift box of all the new products that you want them to test out and give you feedback on, right? Well, in order to personalize that for them, you're going to need to know what their interests are, so that you're not going to send, in the case of say, health products, you're not going to send a pregnancy product to a guy, for example, right? So you're going to need to know what their preferences and what their interests are, and that's a very legitimate reason to ask for those preferences if you're trying to personalize what you're giving to them for free, right? The next thing that we need to think about when we're thinking, I guess, of data quite holistically is if we're trying to build one-to-one relationships between us as a business, our customers, with the data being the interface to make that happen, right? We need to start thinking about what data do we need to leverage to create that one-to-one relationship in the first place. So we've just talked about sources, and we've talked about some of the ways to solicit that data and get that data, and then we need to think about how do we leverage that data, right? So live chat is becoming the hub of customer communications. So today in the tech world, apart from very bespoke technologies, most live chat platforms don't do well outside of live chat. Some of them do, but in businesses like ours, ideally we would have one platform that centralized all typewritten messaging, right? So whether that be Instagram, Facebook Messenger, whatever it might be. There's not really that many platforms out there that do that great, and they don't handle it well from a return path perspective when people start responding to you on those channels. So it's something to think about. So the next phase in this, in terms of building one-to-one relationships from a data perspective, is getting product attributes and structured data into your system. Who here knows what I'm talking about when I'm talking about structured data versus unstructured data? Who knows the difference? Just if you do know the difference, put up your hand. Okay, about half. I'd say about 50%. Well, let me explain that a little bit more, what I mean. So in the case of selling products, a description or the name of the product, that description or that list of ingredients or that name, those are all unique to the product. That is unstructured data. Anything that's completely unique to a product or a service is unstructured data. Structured data is a piece of data that is common to more than one product. So if I sell fashion, if I sell clothes, for example, and I'm talking about colors, red, blue, green, black, brown, that is structured data because that color red applies to more than one product in my data set, in my catalog, right? The importance of structured data to every single piece of technology that you use and every one-to-one relationship you're trying to create cannot be overstated. I can't make that more important to you. So to give you an example of how important that is for us as a business, as HealthPost, based on my experience, and how hard it is to go and get that data because most of the time the suppliers don't even have it, and they have to go get it for you. So we have over 200 suppliers that we deal with as HealthPost. So we set out in the mid-2017, we agreed that structured product data was one of the most important data sets we could ever have as a business, not just for us, but more importantly for our customers. If you, for example, are a gluten-free person or a celiac, and you want to know, and you're in a category on my website that has over 500 products in it, the only products you care about in that category are the gluten-free products. If you can't tick a button that says gluten-free and have only the gluten-free product show, it's not a great experience for you. But that comes down to the data and how it is structured so that I can provide that experience to you on a personalized one-to-one basis. So what we did is we collected over 70 attributes based on customer interviews, based on previous customer purchases and purchase history. We collected over 70 attributes that we found above all others, and this is down to site search and other pieces of data that informed this discovery process internally, that were really important to our customers. They were the most important product attributes, right? So we said, well, we probably can't go out and get 1,000 product attributes, but we can probably go out and get 70, right? That's doable. Pretty big project. We're still in the middle of it. So what we did is we structured this all together in basically a Google Doc spreadsheet, all these attributes, and we went and we approached every one of our 200 suppliers and we said, can you please tick the boxes for each of the SKUs that you supply for us? Can you tick the boxes for all of the attributes that apply to your products? Some suppliers had it, some suppliers didn't, okay? But as you can see, not only can we merchandise those attributes, so once we have them, and we're probably, I would say we're probably about 80% of the way there. And it has to be a big bang project. We have to launch with all this data at once. Otherwise, if we launch with, if only 50 of the suppliers have supplied us the data, then they're going to get preferential treatment in our catalog because when somebody filters their products in, everybody else is going to be filtered out. So we have to work really closely with our suppliers to get it all at the same time and put it live at the same time. So what does this lead on to? So when we're talking about dynamic segmentation that scales, so for example, site search, product recommendations, email, push notifications, etc., every single one of those technologies work better and much more accurately in a structured data environment. So if all you have is unstructured data today, i.e. descriptions and names and maybe ingredients and some product highlights that are unique to those products, every single one of those technologies, those extra sets of merchandising and marketing technologies and sales technologies and discovery technologies that you're spending lots and lots of money on, you're probably not getting really good return on investment on those technologies because they all rely on structured data. They make linkages between this product over here that's a gluten-free product and this product over here is a gluten-free product. Someone that's bought a gluten-free product is likely going to be interested in gluten-free products. Someone who buys red products 80% of the time, if you're a fashion brand, is signaling that they're pretty interested in red stuff, right? And if you can't link those together with your catalog, then it's going to be really, really hard to market red stuff to them. The other thing that really comes to mind off the back of this is how do we cross-reference data? And I'm going to give you an example in our business of how, by cross-referencing data, we saw correlations that don't immediately leap to mind. So as an e-commerce manager, there's a few key metrics that I'm personally responsible for in the business. So one of those is conversion rate, okay? So I've got a target. It's a pretty high target in terms of conversion rate, and it's always increasing every year. Sometimes I can work with the business to help hit it, and sometimes we don't. But one of the things that is completely outside of my control, but is inside my control from a data and insights perspective, is catalog availability at any given point in time. And what we learned when we started looking at our catalog availability in a given month, so if we have 5,000, 10,000 products, however many products we have, or you have, if you start to look at, okay, well, if in any given month we have 25% of those products not available in our catalog, and then you cross-reference that with your conversion rate, and then you track those over time, catalog availability versus conversion rate, probably like our business, you're going to find a very, very tight correlation. Now, if you start thinking from the human perspective, that makes a heck of a lot of sense. Because if you're coming to our website, and our average cart size, let's say hypothetically, is 3 items, and when you come there, 1 out of the 3 items is not available, what are you going to do? You're either going to not convert at all, and you're going to come back another time once that 3rd item is available so you can get your free shipping because you're over the free shipping threshold, or you're going to go somewhere else. You're going to go to a physical store. You're going to go to another online store that has all those items that you can buy at once as one single purchase. And so that's why a piece of data that's seemingly completely unrelated to another KPI can be very tightly correlated. And so you need to work on those together, and you have to plumb those together in such a way that they make meaningful sense, and you can draw an insight out of it. Okay, so the other thing that becomes really, really critical when you're starting to think about data and how you leverage it, how you collect it, how you surface it, and how you integrate it together is automation, right? So we've heard a lot of talk today in a few streams about chatbots and semantic engines and a whole lot of things about automation. So there's a whole lot of data that needs to come into those systems to allow them to perform well. And a lot of that has to do with training these systems to understand the way that your customers think and the semantics that they use. But some of the things that we don't think about in some respects from a data perspective, because we're so focused on the future of what's coming from a technology perspective, is we don't deal with the now. And I'm a really, really big fan of dealing with the now. It's like, hey, I love the new tech, and I'm a real big tech guy, right? But what are we dealing with today, and how can we make that better? So what we've looked at as a business is, when we're looking at our data, as we've scaled revenue, so we take a whole bunch of metrics from our customer service team. About 25 staff in our customer service team. They work in different shifts, and we collect key metrics on their performance. How many questions per minute, per hour, per day? How long are they on calls? How long does it take them to answer emails? You know, what kind of workloads can we get through? We'll look at all sorts of metrics on how customer service performs. One of those key metrics is how quickly we can answer a customer's query in the first contact, right? So our head of customer service is measured in terms of a KPI perspective on that first response, on what percentage of queries can we answer in one response or less, ideally. So how do we get to the less? How do we go from one response to no responses? There's only one way to do that. That's through data and automation. So one of the ways you can surface data that you already have internally is by externalizing it and putting it into your channels that you're already talking to your customers on in a really meaningful and contextual and timely fashion. So what we're looking at doing, so we've got probably about 5,000 standardized questions that our customers ask us on a very regular basis. And they tie back, in most cases, to specific products and specific questions around those specific products. Now, what if we could, instead of just search those internally in terms of an internal knowledge base that we can then put into an email or onto a phone or live chat, what if we could surface those at point of purchase, or at least the point of consideration, so on the product page? So we're looking at technologies where we can pipe that out in an automated way to the relevant SKU on the product page for a Q&A. So over time, the whole idea is to surface as much internal knowledge as we possibly can at the point of conversion or at the point of friction, the point of consideration, so that as our revenue scales and as our transactions scale, we don't have to scale the amount of people dealing with the queries that come off of the back of that growth, right? So if we think of AI and machine learning, and I really truly believe that the term AI is really overused. I was at an AWS symposium 2 weeks ago about the state of machine learning at AWS. And I noticed that even Amazon themselves were extremely cautious. I never heard, over an hour and a half symposium, I never heard them use the term AI once. They specifically called it machine learning. And that's very accurate because machine learning, which is based primarily on algorithmics, right, has been around for a very long time. Okay, so AI is the latest iteration of machine learning. And AI is the next generation, really, of machine learning. But machine learning is something quite distinct in its own right. And I think that one of the keys that came out of that symposium, and one of the keys that's come out of internally in our business and the discussions I'm having with experts in the commerce space that I often liaise with and we share ideas with, is that our AI as a business is most likely going to come via partners. It's most likely going to come via the technology partners that we choose to work with. It's going to come via our ERP partners. It's going to come via our e-commerce technology partners. So our site search providers, our product recommendation providers, all of the technologies that we use internally to facilitate really personalized commerce, they're the ones that are more at the cutting edge from an algorithm and an AI perspective. And so buying into and aligning with where they see the market going and where they're trying to take your customers on their customer journey becomes super important. Because it's pretty unlikely, given the complexity of AWS even, where they're trying to democratize AI to where you can just plug in via an API, send them a bunch of requests, define what you want the responses to be, and they can plummet back to you via API. Well, that sounds friggin' fantastic. But I've seen the UI, and I'm a pretty technical guy, and I can tell you, you're going to probably need a data scientist to do even the most rudimentary AI on-demand integration. You're going to need a phalanx of data scientists to make that happen. So partner with the right partner technologies that already are playing in that space. Algorithms already underlie everything that they do as a technology. That's what they do as a business, right? That's what drives their technology. So partner with companies that already are thinking along the AI spectrum and how AI is going to affect them and by extension, you and your customers. So getting pretty close to the end here. So I wanted to put together just a few tips that I think would hopefully be key takeaways that would be super useful to you and you can start implementing pretty soon in your businesses. And then we'll hopefully get into some Q&A. So build systems to capture data in a structured way so that it can be reused and integrated. And that's a real key. So some systems are designed to capture, house, hierarchically structure data and expose it in really smart ways, and also run BI, business intelligence layers over the top of it. Some technology is not. So our ERP that we implemented, so we've moved to SaaS technology almost across the entire business. So we moved away from self-hosted technologies and a lot of open source technology to SaaS, on-demand technologies. And one of the things that we thought about as part of our as part of our platform selection process is how do these platforms use data? How do they collect it? How do they sort it? And how do they make it available to us in unique ways that maybe we haven't even thought of so that we can leverage them in different areas of the business that we hadn't thought of before? So key selection criteria was data. So keep that at the forefront of your mind. So PII data is king. Who here knows what PII stands for? Okay, so literally probably about 3. So PII stands for personally identifying information. So most of your data sets, whether that be third-party data sets or whether that even be Google Analytics or other clickstream analytics tools that gather data on customer behavior on your site, they'll be doing it in an anonymous, aggregated wisdom of the crowd way, okay? So that's great, and it achieves certain outcomes, but what you ideally want to have is personally identifying information. You want to know that Sally likes the red dress. You want to know that Sally will, if you present her with a 5% coupon code at point of checkout, she's going to convert at an extra 5% over Johnny that will take a 10% coupon code to convert at checkout. So from a personalization perspective, you need to be having personally identifying information to tie behavior and demographics to product data and then ultimately to the experience and be able to personalize that experience. So what you also want to do is democratize data access and data sharing. So Historically, data has been siloed in very specific areas of a business. Oftentimes, depending on the size of the business, they'll have actually an insights or reporting part of the business, and these are usually run by data scientists, analysts, data analysts as well. The problem with that is that it's very difficult for data analysts to contextualize this massive volume of data cross-functionally across the business. And what that means is that for them to create, if they're not just going to spew reporting, which doesn't really do anybody any good except for maybe the board, and even then it's difficult. If you want it to be contextual, you need to have data access be pretty democratic, and you need to have it, every department needs to be able to access data that's important to them for the decision-making process. And also, when you tie that back to the customer experience they're trying to build, what data do they need to be able to create that customer experience in the first place, both upfront in terms of technology selection, but also ongoing, right? The other thing is optimizing data for the mobile experience. So we all know that mobile is the remote control of our lives, that mobile is taking over absolutely everything that we do. I nowadays, even on business, I really don't generally travel even with a laptop anymore. And it's just the way that we're moving as the remote control of our lives. And so when we start thinking about data, we need to think about it from a mobile-first perspective, because that is the channel that is going to see the most growth over the next handful of years up to the next decade until we get into full VR and AR and haptic touch to where the interface itself goes away entirely. So be creative in the collection and use of your data. So some of those use cases I talked about in terms of creating a personalized experience and bringing value to the customer, being able to present that in a unique and, I guess, empathetic way. If you're going to personalize gift giving to someone, or trialing, as it were, or box giving, then that is one creative way of collecting the data. But there's hundreds of very creative ways in being able to ask your customers for data that's neither creepy nor offensive. And that's up to you, as the people that run your businesses, to not be creepy or offensive, but to add value through the data collection process, as opposed to a tack-on consideration. So that's just about the end of my time. We've got a few minutes left. So I don't know if we had any questions coming in via Slido, but let's jump into them if we do. Great. That's a really good question. I think for us as a business, one of the things that we just came out with this insight. So I work very closely with the marketing team. I'm not on the marketing team. I answer directly to the CEO, which is kind of scary because I'm first in the firing line when something goes wrong. But one of the things that, in conjunction with marketing, that we figured out was that we were acquiring lots of new customers for first purchases in a 12-month period, but we were hemorrhaging nearly the same amount in churn in terms of customers that didn't repurchase within a 3-year period. So what we found was they were effectively swapping out a whole lot of new customers for a whole lot of old customers that effectively had gone stagnant, and we had to reactivate them. So when we did the math and we subtracted those out, it started to make our cost of acquisition look not as great as if we purely looked at the top line number of customers that we acquired. So that was a pretty big insight for us, for sure. Yeah, look, I think every business is a little bit different in the way that they do it. For us, we have a customer segment called the trialists, and these are people that are relatively new, I guess, to natural health in general, but it could be a trialist in any business or any vertical. And so for us, really getting customers, I guess, to try new products is a really big deal for us. And so for us, we partner. One of our big considerations is that the brands that we work with don't want us to devalue their brand, so they don't want to just discount the product. So what we have to do is we have to think of creative ways, whether it be through bundling product or trialing products and say, buy one, get this product that we're trying to trial for free. It's the buy two, get one free. It's the buy one, get one free. It's those types of campaigns for us that both don't devalue the brands that we sell, because it's not a straight discount off the product, but it's something that our customers really like, because it allows those trialists, which is a pretty big group with us, to try new products at basically zero risk to them because it's a gift. Look, I think it's not that I've got a crystal ball. I think I'm just trying to watch really closely what's actually happening in the marketplace. And I have a lot of good friends that work in the space, so we do talk a lot about what's happening, and I do watch what's happening overseas, and definitely SaaS is and continues to be the great disruptor. Going from a lot of open source, a lot of self-hosted, a lot of bespoke, custom applications, custom technologies, the ability to leverage best-of-breed software on a subscription basis, and then tying it all together through APIs. Biggest shift I've seen in 15 years of digital, and it's something that both the agencies and the businesses themselves just haven't wrapped their head around yet, for the most part. Some have, but shadow IT is a thing, and shadow IT refers to democratized IT that basically is a service yourself IT to where different divisions that haven't gone through the IT department for approval, they'll stand up a Slack account because they need to communicate and IT hasn't facilitated that. Or they'll go up and set up a Jira instance because they need to run an internal project and they don't really want IT's fingers in their project management. So that's shadow IT. And I think that SaaS goes hand in hand with shadow IT, and that's a big disruptor. For us, it's shipping. It's the elephant in the room. It's fulfillment costs. We have really low shipping rates, but I tell you, when we do, there's two that work really well for us. It's double rewards, whether it be at a brand or a site-wide perspective. So double rewards points is a massive one for us. It's a big driver of sales. Anytime we have any kind of double reward scenario, it's a massive driver of revenue and conversion. The other one is the branded stuff. So if we're doing if we're doing free shipping and or double rewards points, it's guaranteed to probably double our conversion for the period of the campaign. So for us, it's a huge one. Cool. Thanks, guys.